there's no better guy to look up to than Muggsy Bogues, who is, of course, legendary for his time. I would say with the Hornets, obviously people know him as a high school guy if you're from the DC area, but career assist and steals leader with the Hornets. First of all, how's life in Charlotte for you right now?
Life is great. It's Graham. It could be better considering the situation with everybody else is in with this pandemic. But with that being said, I'm just trying to, stay out everybody's way. Follow the officials, the protocols, and do what I can do with within my control.
Yeah.
So enjoying speaking with you on this podcast.
So Muggsy obviously 5'3", and when you played in the late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s, it was really a center game. It was the big, the land of the big men. Throw it down in the post, back down, hook shot, whatever. I'm just curious, how do you think you would fit into the current NBA, which is pace and space, tempo? It feels like a guards game right now.
Well, I mean, we had some great guards back then as well. Now,
Yes.
so
A couple good ones, yeah.
MJ wasn't bad, and Isaiah, we had a lot of guys. But the game has changed. Back then it was more of a physical. It was more physical back then. It was more stationary. You had guys that can camp in the lane a lot longer. You can hand check guys, you can control. And then the rules of the game was different. And not only that, but the skill set was different from our guys. We had guys 6'9", 7-footer playing with their back towards the basket. And here it is today, we got 6'9", 7-foot bringing the ball up the court, starting the offense. And it's relatively, warranted in terms of the skills of today's game. These guys are really skillful. The game has evolved. So you got to, it will continue, and when machinery get better, guys are getting faster and stronger, it's always going to be that way. So, you got to credit the NBA for allowing them to adjust to players of today's game.
Yeah, let's start with a guy in your backyard there, LaMelo Ball, who is having a pretty phenomenal rookie season. I don't think anybody saw this kind of production from him. People thought he would be good, but, I mean, this is a teenager tearing up the league. He is a big leader for Rookie of the Year. I'm just curious, are you surprised how easy the game seems for him, LaMelo Ball?
Well, I'm not surprised, and it's going to, he's going to have his ups and downs continuously as being a rookie. But for him, credit to him, he got an opportunity to play against professionals last year as a youngster playing over, overseas. Those guys are considered pros, and having that experience and having that understanding, boosted his ego. He couldn't wait to get an opportunity to play against the best in the world, which is the NBA. And he relished at the moment. He sees the game from a point guard perspective. It's kind of slowed down, I would say, where he's able to, understand where his teammates want the basketball and how they can be successful with it. And at the same time, being able to create his own opportunities. And I kind of compare him to a little Jason Kidd and Penny Hardaway in one package, with the vision with J Kidd, with the height and the scoring ability with Penny Hardaway. And that's something that, is very rare. You hate to be compared to anybody, but with me, being around the game and seeing it, just looking at his skill set, and he has those two qualities within those two young men I just mentioned.
Yeah, I was dubious that it would work instantly in Charlotte, given Graham and Rozier are kind of bulldogs who had to fight for everything. They're kind of underdogs, and in comes this, hot shot young kid who's been written about since he was a freshman in high school out here in California. Are you surprised how easy it's come for him, given the nature of the Hornets backcourt?
No, that's what's very helpful for him, having that dynamic backcourt. And you mentioned with Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier, because those guys, even though Rozier a little more veteran than Devontae Graham, they bring experience, and they, don't come in with egos, and they was willing to help the young fella grow and accept him to come in. And I think another addition with Gordon Hayward, being a veteran, they need veterans around these young guys, and they needed the right veteran. And I think he was that right veteran, because he's not going to be someone that come in and be dominant of the growth of the potential of Miles Bridges, of a PJ Washington, as well as Devontae Graham. And then with him and with Haywood and Rozier playing together in Boston, they have some familiarity with one another, and that gives them, with their skill set, Hayward could create his own shot from the three as well as the mid range. And Terry just having the best season of his career. That allowed these young guys just to play their game and let Melo be him. And I think for him being the point guard, pass first type of guy, these guys love playing with a player like that.
I'm curious, outside of anyone on the Charlotte Hornets, is there any point guard right now in the NBA you just absolutely love to watch?
Of course, Steph Curry.
Okay, just making sure it's Curry.
Steph is going to be CP. And, I like all the Kyrie, even the young fella Saxton and Fox up at Kings and all the way down to, Trae Young over there in Atlanta. I love all my guys. And the Westbrooks, those are my guys. I just love guys competing and at the highest level. And these guys have been doing it for quite some time.
Maybe it was just an oversight. No, I did not hear Kyrie Irving mentioned. Are you a big fan of his work or no? I know he rubs some people the wrong way.
No, I said Kyrie.
Oh, you did say Kyrie. Okay, maybe I
overlooked
that.
Yeah, for sure. Kyrie is a showstopper, baby. Yeah.
He is. He's kind of a showstopper. But listen, you were a showstopper in your prime, dude. Come on. I mean, some of these highlights that you see from Wake Forest and in the NBA, like, you were just one of these dynamic guys. I have to ask about, the height thing and how you overcame it. Because, listen, man, 5'3", not a lot of 5'3" guys in NBA history. I mean, I probably could count them on one hand. What do you think was the biggest obstacle for you with the height, convincing people? I mean, you were top lottery pick to the Bullets back in the day, 1987 draft. What was the biggest obstacle overcoming with the height?
Well, you're probably going to count on one finger with the 5'3".
What was Spud Webb? 5'4"?
5'7".
No, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Then we had Gary Grant, 5'5", and then you had so we had a couple guys in there. Nate was Nate Rhymes was 5'8".
Yeah.
So we had a couple guys in there. But for me, in terms of breaking down the barrier, it was just, understanding what that game and what my position called for. And for me, playing in the conferences that I played in, the ACC was considered the best, and I thought the best in the country. At the time, and playing against some of the best players. And when you play against the best and you had success against the best, then you felt like you need to be included with the best. So having that attitude and that mindset allowed me to keep climbing up the ladders and letting folks know that it's not just who have the height to play the game, but whoever had the to play the game. So, tall, small, basketball is a game for all. And I always understood that.
And back to the high school days, you were on a loaded team, but you kind of ran the show. That was your team, the undefeated Dunbar team. That I think you were 59-0 in high school, some obscene number. And we're talking about playing the best basketball in the country in the DC area. Do you recall getting people trying to push you around and say, "Oh, this is not your team. You're only 5'3". How did you handle that stuff?
Well, no one was going to push me around. I was a cocky little kid, grew up in the inner city of Baltimore. We had a little swagger to ourselves. So that wasn't going to happen. But in terms of, people really, inquisitive minds wanted to know. They never seen a guy my size out there competing like that.
Yeah.
And we was very loaded. We was talented. We was fortunate enough to have 4 guys to go play in the NBA, David Wingate, the Reggie Lewis, may rest in peace, and the Reggie Williams. And had a coach that had that understanding how to manage those egos and how to make them work and collectively as one. For me, at that time, I was just trying to showcase and let folks know that a kid my size are capable of playing on this level. And me running the show, plus getting the respect for your teammates. I had that leader type of mentality to where, I understood being an extension of that coach because the ball was in my hand pretty much 85% of the time.
I'm sure a lot of people have read your upbringing. It was difficult. We had Sean Merriman on the podcast, the former NFL player, and he talked about just a tough upbringing in kind of that region. Obviously you're now in Charlotte. Great career, great life. But how often do you think about, what you came out of and how you were able to escape a really tough area in Baltimore?
Well, and of course, sports continue to keep you active and keep your mind. Early on, unfortunately for me, I got shot at the age of 5 and, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And, but that was the environment that you grew up in. And of course, from that moment on, my mindset changed and things kind of, focused more so on the things that you became interested in, which was sports. And,
Yeah.
the sports gave me an avenue, and, having people in your corner telling you, that, school is important, because they didn't think basketball was going to be part of my journey, but, it was the schooling and, just having that positive influence. And for me, I just knew that I wanted to play, and nothing going to deter me from playing. And my strong, mind that I had, and like I say, where I came from, was gonna, wasn't gonna prevent me from accomplishing what I was carrying around in my head for
Yeah. I mean, you said you were shot when you were 5. Like, how much do you actually remember about that? I mean, I'm sure that was a life-changing moment, but 5 years old, geez. You're now what, 56?
56.
Yes.
Very vividly. You remember it very vividly. It's something that you don't never leave your memory bank. Fortunate for me that I got hit with the pellets and not the bullet. The bullet over my head, and I got the buckshots went all over my arms and my legs. But at the age of 5, you didn't know the difference. You just knew that you was bleeding and things was in your body, and that felt too good. So.
Wow. And then, so I want to revisit this Reggie Williams high school team, because he was one of my favorite players as a Georgetown fan. I just loved, like, his ability to just score off the dribble. Like, as a point guard, I'm curious, like, you see Wingate scoring and Reggie getting buckets. How much did you want to also score, or were you just content saying, you know what, I'm good averaging 8 points and 8 assists and being the floor general, a defensive hound of an all-time great team?
Well, yeah, that was, I had no problem. That was where I got my passion. I was dishing out the basketball, seeing others play the basketball, creating for others, allowing them to do what they do. That's what I felt like point guard responsibility was. You have opportunity to create for your own as well, but the most important thing, you're running your team. You making, and position wise at that time, you more or less, understanding how to get everybody involved and how to keep the chemistry as a unit going in the right direction.
I want to bounce to the NBA. When you got to the league, obviously a lottery pick, 12th overall. That was the David Robinson draft. You ended up in Washington, and obviously, listen, they were a miserable franchise. I doubt you disagree. But it must have felt good to kind of stay home, right?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I was so grateful and thankful that the Bullets took me, regardless of how it all unfolded. But, that was the day the weight of the world was lifted off your shoulders. And
Yeah.
and going back and playing in your backyard, playing with some of the greats, and the late Moses Malone, and may he rest in peace, as well as Manu Bowl, may he rest in peace, playing with Darrell Walker, John Williams, Jeff Malone, those guys, Terry Catlett, Bernard King. That was an honor. The Charles Jones. So it was really for me welcoming to the league. Knowing that, hey, this is a professional sport, a job that that you got to make sure that you keep. And again, when things didn't work out in Washington, going to Charlotte, I felt like it was a match made in heaven, allowed me to showcase.
I am curious. I think every kid I knew had the Muggsy Bogues Manute Bowl poster. How quick did that get old? Were you just instantly sick of that storyline, or were you like, hey, I'm in the NBA, I don't care. You guys, you could talk about it.
Yeah. It was what it is. What it was. I mean, that's who we are. It wasn't nothing you can run from. Manute was 6, I was 5'3", and it was the nature of it. And you got to accept that. You got to have fun with it, because that's exactly what it was. And so we enjoyed that. We enjoyed the ironing of it, and it's good to see now his son playing in the league.
And what was like the vibe when you got traded? Like, obviously you have to kind of leave home, but you had the experience of Wake Forest. You go to kind of a Charlotte team that was very new to the league and not very good. But talk about the circumstances of changing teams there early in your career.
Well, at the beginning, it wasn't a good feeling, but I got over that real quickly, because I came to a familiarity. A place where played college only an hour and a half away from, a city that was familiar with me. Charlotte, knowing I played in Wake Forest and ACC for quite some time. And it was a college town at the beginning. They had to grow to know about what the NBA was all about. And we all grew together. And that was a great experience, playing with the likes of the Del Curry, the Rex Chapmans, the Kelly Tripucas, at the same time, Kirk Ramsey and so forth, Earl Cureton, Ricky Green. That was a mixture of young guys with the vets, and that was again a way of entering to the league and understanding that, hey, you can be gone any moment.
Yeah. So a few years later, you guys get Kendall Gill, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, and all of a sudden, you guys are one of the most popular teams in the league. Those jerseys were off the charts, cool. And then you take down Boston in the playoffs, and it's like, whoa! I just take us back to that moment when you guys beat Boston and have to face the Knicks in the playoffs in '93, and just what it was like. I mean, you had made it, right? This is not just being in the NBA. You're on a good team in the playoffs. Kind of revisit that, Muggsy.
Yeah, that was a stepping stone for us. As you just mentioned, the draft picks we started to acquire, the Kendall Gills, and then the Larry Johnson, then Alonzo Mourning. Those young stars came in and with some swagger, with some readiness in terms of the play in the NBA level, and we became an exciting team with the mixture that we had with the Johnny Newmans, as well as the Dale Curry, as I mentioned, and that became a team, Kenny Gaddis, and so we had a great mixture of young and veteran players, and that had became a fun, exciting team. Of course, the uniforms, with the pinstripes and the teal and the purple, everybody really loved them colors.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it became, we became a national, known commodity. And of course, winning that game against Boston, that series, propelled that and put the city on a different stage. And that was a great moment for, the organization, because it was in the fifth year of his experience, fifth year in the league. And here it is, he was able to, make it to the playoff and had that, not only make it, but prevail in that first round against a prestige organization like Boston.
Yeah, one of the bigger questions in the 90s, besides what would have happened if Michael Jordan never retired, what do you think would have happened if Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning had been able to work out whatever the differences was? I don't exactly know what unfolded there or why it didn't work out, but what do you remember as to why it didn't really happen? Because a couple years later, you guys get to the playoffs against the Bulls and lose, and everybody's like, okay, maybe they got next. It felt like you were making stepping stones, as you said, but then it kind of fell apart. How do you recall it unfolding?
Contract.
Yeah.
It was the contract. They offered them one, and the other team offered them more, and of course, more always win. And and there was no fault of Zoe, but that's part of negotiation. And at that time, when a young player of that nature become free and felt like, he's willing, he deserving a pay raise. And if he don't get what he feel like he deserved, then of course they're going to go to a place where they feel like he could get it. And that's where exactly he got in Miami. And that was the end of that.
Did you feel it was like a tug of war whose team it was? Because that's a big narrative now in the NBA, Muggsy. Like when Kevin Durant was in Golden State. Well, whose team is it? Personally, as a fan, I think it's a dumb topic. Yeah. But we talk about it all the time on TV, And then whose team is it now? James Harden or Kyrie Irving? Did you feel that was an issue, Larry Johnson or Alonzo Mourning, or no?
No, because one thing, I had a strong presence there. My voice was strong, and it wasn't who team it was. It was the stars. We was pretty much all in it together. We didn't look at it in that regards. It's my franchise. This, because
right.
The guys, we all respected each other. With Dell and I been there the longest, and those guys coming in, and we mentoring them and understanding. So they gave us that respect as well. So it wasn't no egos and folks, take it the wrong way in terms of, especially with Larry and Alonzo. They got along extremely well here in Charlotte. And they was fighting, for each other, in terms of when we was trying to bring in that championship here to Charlotte. So it was no negativity going on there.
It's weird because the way you frame it is you and Dell were, the veterans in the locker room, and you kind of need that presence. But a lot of these teams now, Muggsy, they don't have the veterans. They've just got these huge stars and then a bunch of ancillary pieces. I'm not trying to create a problem in Brooklyn, but I do wonder when things go sideways, and they will, who steps up in that locker room? Kevin Durant? He's not really a veteran. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, these are all like superstars. How do you think they'll handle that?
What do you mean Kevin Durant ain't no veteran?
He's only like 31 years old.
He's been in the league 10, 12 years. What do you mean he's not a veteran?
He's bounced around. KD's a veteran.
Yeah, KD's a veteran with championships. So
So
that
okay, so I would think KD is the guy, right?
that pedigree brings that stigma within itself. So I mean, in terms of, but those guys, I mean, they understand what's going on in the locker room. I mean, they said it. I mean, very vividly in terms of Kyrie and as well as James Harden, as well as Kevin Durant, in terms of, we respect one another. It's not about who team it is. They all respect each other in terms of how to dialogue, how to communicate. And here it is. Look what they're doing without Durant in the last 4 games. They
Yeah.
winning together and they playing, accepting each other's roles. The ball is now in James Harden's hand, and Kyrie is more or less the wing guard, which he's accept, and they all accept that. So, in terms of people trying to wait and see if anything go wrong with that organization, I mean, that's just crazy, to be thinking. But these guys are men. They've been around the league for a long time. Outside noise always try to creep in, and I'm
Yeah.
sure they understand that. And going forward, they relish the moment.
And I guess I asked that because Kyrie's last two stops in Boston, it was kind of him versus the young guys. And then in Cleveland, you'd think he would just defer to LeBron, but he demanded to be traded. And I almost, it's difficult for me to comprehend why someone would want to leave a guy like LeBron. But I just do wonder when, in the locker room with these big time stars, how do you avoid ego creeping in? Is there even a way to do that, or is it impossible?
Well, I mean, you got to look at Kyrie in his own right. I mean, not wanting to play with LeBron. That ain't nothing. I mean, nothing knock on either one of them. Just to decided that they want to try something different. They played with each other. They were successful with each other, and he decided he wanted something more for himself. I mean, as a player, you got that right. You don't have
Yeah.
to. Everybody want to predict everybody's future. Everybody this and that. These guys as a professional, as a business. These guys have the right to go and hopefully choose and play for who they feel they gotta, when they become free, they got an opportunity to do. And
Yeah.
here it is, and him and the friendship that him and Kevin Durant formed with each other. They decided they want to play with each other. And the mix just happened with James Harden by being in Houston. They decided to join him, but that's the nature of the NBA. It's a business for one. I know a lot of people talk about the trades and what guys say and what they do, but they do forget about the organizations when they do things. When they trade players without their knowing, without their saying, you don't hear much about that. But when a player wants
No,
to,
yeah. That's
they
a good
want to
point.
go. So, I mean, it goes both ways.
Draymond Green, yeah, that was a great point he made. I do wonder, Muggsy, we could wrap up on this. Like Kevin Garnett recently said he didn't know if players, 20 years ago could hang today. And that opened a lot of eyes. You spent a lot of time in the league and you watch, obviously, the NBA now. Do you think guys from the 90s and the early 2000s could hang in the league today?
I'm quite sure every NBA player feel like they can play in any era. That's just the skill set that they bring to the table. And being once you make it to that pinnacle, that level, you become one of the best of the world.
Yeah.
So era, whichever it is, I'm quite sure they will be able to adjust their game to that particular setting because the skill set was there, doing that. Each game, each year, each generation is going to evolve. Like I said, we talked about earlier, from the skill set and so far for where players are today, and what they're working on and what they trying to become. It wasn't emphasis back then where a big guy work on ball handling and all that. So it was more, but again, it will change again when those big men come along and certain things happen. So, that's the evolving of our game.
Yeah, so because one of the fun debates I've had with somebody is like Patrick Ewing is one of my favorite players. I was born in New York. And somebody is like, well, what is Patrick Ewing in the NBA right now? And you just made a great point. Like, it's tough to transport Ewing now because he would have been growing up in the AAU and shooting threes, like you're saying, and like stretching the floor and being a stretch five. He wouldn't be a back to the basket guy, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Patrick Ewing's skill set will still be the same. Is that then they will have to adjust to his game, because then you can't play no small guy on Patrick or Akeem Olajuwon or Robert Parrish and all of. So the rules will be changed again. That's what I'm trying to let you all know. It's skill sets. that allows that to happen. So in the Kevin Durant ain't gonna be playing no Moses Malone in the paint. So you see it and all that, and vice versa. So that's just the way it is. When their guys and the Shaquille's on there, the shot. So Shaq ain't had to worry about shooting no threes. So again, he wasn't worried. You got to adjust to him. So they gonna throw the ball in and dump him down into him. And what you gonna do? You ain't got no other choice but to, put 5 guys to try to double team and try to stop him. So the game will be adjusted to him. So that's how you look at it.
All right, Muggsy Bogues, the NBA legend. Muggsy, thanks a lot for taking the time, man, and keep up the good work in Charlotte. And I think we'll see your team in the playoffs this year.
I hope so, James. I'm telling you, I'm sure we're shooting for it, buddy. We're shooting for it.
Yeah.